After 40 years working as an industrial engineer, I retired and spent my life savings, building a peaceful life on my farmland. Then one evening, my daughter called and said, "My husband's parents need a place to stay. You have plenty of space, and at your age managing all that land alone doesn't make sense." I didn't argue. I simply listened, smiled, and started writing everything down. Because I already knew they weren't coming to help me. They were coming for something they thought I could no longer protect. Before we go any further, I am so grateful you are here with me today. Drop a comment and tell me, where in the world are you watching? From your city, your state, your country? I want to know. Here on Revenge. Dad, every voice in that comment section matters to me. A quick note, this story contains fictional elements crafted for reflection and storytelling. Any similarity to actual names or places is coincidental, but everything it teaches you is worth keeping. That October evening, I set 4 boxes on the dinner table, and the room went so quiet I could hear the furnace kicking on 2 rooms away. Frank Harlow looked at those boxes the way a man looks at something he wasn't supposed to see. His jaw tightened, his fingers curled around the edge of the table. Patty reached for his arm, then pulled her hand back. My daughter Claire pressed her lips together so hard they went white at the corners. And Dennis, my son-in-law, stared at the box nearest him, like the cardboard itself had just said his name out loud. I looked at all 4 of them and said, "Before anybody opens their mouth, I want everyone to take a look at what's in here." But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a habit I picked up from 40 years of fixing things that were already broken. You learn to start at the failure point, work backward, find where the whole thing went wrong before the warning light ever came on. So, let me go back to March, to the beginning. My name is Walter Gaines. I'm 65 years old. I was born in a 2-bedroom house in Catskill, New York, to a man who worked the line at a cement plant and a woman who kept the books for 3 different businesses on Main Street and never once complained about the hours. They taught me 2 things before I was old enough to drive. The first was that nothing worth having comes without calluses. The second was something my father said in the garage one Saturday afternoon, when I was 12 lying under a neighbor's Buick with a flashlight in my teeth. He said, "Walter, a machine tells you what's wrong if you know how to read it. Most men don't read. They feel." He tapped the side of his head. Feeling is what gets people killed. I have thought about that sentence more in the last 14 months than in the 53 years before it. I spent 4 decades as an industrial mechanical engineer. Conveyor systems, hydraulic presses, grain processing equipment, the kind of machinery that doesn't forgive mistakes. I worked mostly in Columbia County up in the Hudson Valley, and I built a reputation for one thing I didn't guess. I measured, I documented, I signed my name to work that other people's livelihoods depended on, and I never once put pen to paper until I was certain the numbers were right. When I retired, I had 5 farms. Not inherited, not lucky. Bought piece by piece, starting with 40 acres outside of Claverack in 1987 when I was 28 years old, and so broke I ate bologna sandwiches for 3 months straight because the mortgage payment left me $11 a week for groceries. I fixed the fencing myself. I re-roofed the barn myself. I rented the land to a dairy operation and put every dollar back into the next piece of ground. By the time I was 64, I had 260 acres spread across 5 parcels in Columbia County. Good farmland, flat ground near the river, some wooded hillside, one property with a creek running the south edge that I never once tried to develop because some things you leave alone. I had tenants I trusted. Ray Kowalski had been farming my eastern parcel for 12 years, and the man had never missed a payment or asked me for something unreasonable. I had a house I'd owned outright since 2009. I had a pension or retirement account I'd been feeding since Reagan was in office, and enough set aside that I wasn't going to need anything from anybody. I had what I'd worked for, and I thought that was the end of the hard part. I was sitting on the porch the evening Claire called. It was a Tuesday in late March, and the fields were still carrying the gray-brown of late winter, that ugly in-between color before things start coming back. I had a cup of coffee going cold in my hand, and I was watching a red-tailed hawk work the fence line along the road, hanging in the wind, without moving a feather patient in a way that always struck me as instructional. My phone buzzed on the railing. Claire. I felt a small warmth in my chest when I saw her name the kind a father feels when a daughter calls uncomplicated and immediate. I picked up on the second ring. "Hey, sweetheart." "Hi, Dad." Her voice had a particular quality to it, that I noticed right away something clipped and preloaded, like she'd rehearsed the first 30 seconds. I need to talk to you about something. All right, I said. Talk. Dennis's parents are going to need a place to stay. She pushed right through without a breath. Their lease is up at the end of May, and the rental market up here is impossible right now. Everything decent is either taken or way out of their budget. I set my coffee down on the railing. The hawk out on the fence line dropped, suddenly disappeared into the grass, and came back up with something in its talons. Okay, I said carefully. What are you asking me? You have the guest house on the eastern property, Dad. It's been sitting empty since last fall. Her voice picked up speed the way it used to when she was a teenager trying to get through an argument before I could find the flaw in it. Frank and Patty are good people. They just need somewhere stable while they get sorted out. A few months, maybe through the summer. I stood up from my chair. My knee ached the way it always does in March, but I barely registered it. Something cold had settled in the back of my neck. Not anger, not yet. Something more like the feeling I used to get when a pressure gauge read 2 points outside normal. Not an emergency. A signal. Claire. I said, keeping my voice level. When did you decide this? A pause, just half a beat too long. I'm not deciding anything. I'm asking. You said they're going to need a place to stay. That's not asking. That's informing. Her breath came out sharp through her nose, a sound I'd known since she was 4 years old, and frustrated that the world wasn't cooperating. Dad, please don't make this difficult. You have the space. They need the space. It makes sense. My chest tightened, my fingers pressed hard against the phone knuckles, going stiff. Because here was the thing, and I want to be careful to say this right, because it matters. It wasn't the request itself that put that cold feeling in my neck. I'd helped people before. I'd let a farmhand and his wife stay in that guest house for 6 months back in 2018 when their apartment flooded. I was not a man who said no out of stubbornness. It was the architecture of the request. The way it arrived fully built, no room left for my answer to change anything. The way she'd said Dennis's parents like they were already part of the property conversation, like my land was a variable in someone else's equation. Have you talked to Dennis about this? I asked. Of course. And what did he say? He thinks it's a great idea. Her voice softened, reaching for something that felt like reassurance. Dad, you're out there alone. Having people nearby wouldn't be the worst thing. There it was, the other sentence, the one underneath the first one. You're out there alone, having people nearby at your age. My jaw tightened so hard, I heard it. My hand found the porch railing and gripped at the weathered wood rough against my palm. I breathed once slow, and even the way I used to do, before signing off on a repair that I knew someone was going to second guess. Okay, I said. I hear you. So it's all right. I said I hear you, Claire. That's not the same thing. Another pause, longer this time. I'll call you this weekend, I said. Let me think it through. After I hung up, I stood on that porch for a long time. The hawk was gone. The fields had gone from gray to the darker gray of early evening, and the temperature was dropping the way it does in the Hudson Valley in March, fast and without apology. I picked up my coffee cup and found it completely cold. I went inside and found a legal pad in the kitchen drawer. I sat down at the table, wrote the date at the top, and drew a line down the middle of the page. Left column, what I know. Right column, what I need to find out. My father's voice comes back to me clear as a struck bell. A machine tells you what's wrong if you know how to read it. Most men don't read, they feel. I picked up my pen, and I started reading. I spent the 2 weeks between Claire's call and their arrival doing what I always did when something didn't add up. I went back to the data. I pulled out the legal pad and added to it every evening after dinner, small things mostly. The way Claire had steered around my questions on our Saturday call, answering the ones she wanted to answer, and redirecting the rest. The fact that Dennis had never once called me himself about this arrangement, not to ask, not to explain, not even to say hello, and let the conversation find its way there naturally. A man who wants something from you makes contact. A man who's already gotten it doesn't need to. I wrote those observations in the right column, things I needed to find out. They arrived on a Friday morning in mid-April, and I want to tell you exactly what I saw, because the details matter. Frank Harlow's truck was a late model F-250 silver clean, in the way that work trucks aren't usually clean. He pulled it up the gravel drive and parked it broadside to the house like he was blocking something in, though there was nothing to block. He stepped out first before Patty had even gotten her door open, and he stood there with his hands on his hips and looked at my property the way a man looks at something he's pricing. His eyes went left to right, slow and deliberate. The barn, the east field, the tree line along the creek, the guest house sitting back behind the main structure. He wasn't admiring the view. He was taking inventory. I watched all of this from the porch, coffee in hand, and I kept my face as neutral as I could make it. Then he saw me, and the whole thing changed. The pricing look disappeared, and something warmer and wider took its place. A smile that came up fast, too fast. The kind that's kept ready near the surface for exactly this kind of moment. He raised one hand in a wave and started toward me, with his arm already extended for a handshake. "Walter," he said, gripping my hand firmly, pumping it twice. "Good to finally do this in person. Claire talks about this place like it's something special." "It is something special," I said. 37 years of something special. His grip was strong, which told me he wanted me to notice it. His smile didn't waver, which told me he'd practiced holding it steady. Patty came around the front of the truck with her arms open and her head tilted at that particular angle that means a hug is already decided, and declining, it would be rude. She was a small woman with careful hair and a cardigan that had seen better days, and when she pulled me into the hug, she squeezed with both arms and said, "Oh, Walter, we are just so grateful. You have no idea what this means to us." Her voice had a catch in it, a practiced wobble right on the word grateful, and I felt her press her face briefly against my shoulder like she might actually be moved to tears. I patted her back twice. "Happy to help," I said. That was the first lie I told during this whole thing. I want to be honest about that. I helped them unload the truck. This was partly courtesy and partly intelligence gathering, because what a person moves tells you a great deal about what they're planning. There were 2 large suitcases, a duffel bag, 3 boxes of kitchen items, a rolled-up area rug, and 4. I counted them specifically, 4 banker's boxes with lids on them, the kind you keep files in, labeled with masking tape in Frank's handwriting. I couldn't read the labels from where I was standing, but the boxes themselves were enough. People who come to stay for a few months through the summer don't bring their filing system. I carried one of the banker's boxes myself, and I felt the weight of it shift when I tilted it. Papers, folders, the dense, organized mass of documents. Frank watched me carry it without offering to take it back, which meant either he didn't care what I noticed, or he was confident I wouldn't know what it meant. I was betting on the second one. That was his first mistake. I walked them over to the guest house and showed them through. It was a good space, 1,200 square feet, full kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom with decent water pressure. I'd put a new roof on it in 2019 and replaced the water heater the following spring. It had been sitting empty since October, when my last tenant moved out to be closer to his daughter in Albany. Frank stood in the middle of the main room and turned slowly, looking at the ceiling, the windows, the layout. His mouth was set in a satisfied line, like he was confirming something he'd already decided. "This is perfect," he said. "Just perfect. There's a good hardware store in Hudson if you need anything," I told him. "Ray Kowalski farms the eastern parcel. You'll see his equipment out there most mornings. He's been with me 12 years. Good man you can wave hello, but he runs his own operation." Frank's eyebrows went up just slightly. "Ray works directly with you then, on the lease arrangements and everything." "Ray works with me," I said. "Yes." Patty was already opening cabinet doors in the kitchen, her head moving from shelf to shelf, like she was mentally rearranging things. She turned around with a bright smile. "We'll stay out of everyone's hair. We're just so relieved to have a soft landing while we get our feet back under us." "What's the situation if you don't mind my asking?" I said. "Claire mentioned the lease was up." Frank's hand moved to the back of his neck, a rubbing gesture. "Oh, you know how it goes. Landlord decided to sell markets impossible, timing wasn't ideal. We've got some irons in the fire, just needed a bridge." Irons in the fire. Bridge. The language of a man who doesn't want to give specifics. "Sure," I said. "Well, make yourselves comfortable." I walked back to the main house. When I got to the porch, I didn't go inside. I sat down in my chair and opened the legal pad across my knee, and I wrote down 3 things. First, 4 banker's boxes labeled heavy. Second, Frank's eyes on the tree line, the barn, the east field. Sequence and duration both. Third, Frank's question about Ray. Not, "Is that your tenant?" Not, "What does he grow?" Specifically the lease arrangements and everything. That last one I underlined twice. My chest had gone tight in the way it used to, before a difficult conversation with a foreman who was cutting corners on something that mattered. Not fear, readiness. I looked out at the east field. Ray's tractor was just visible along the far fence line, moving slow and steady, the way Ray always worked, unhurried, thorough, like he had a personal agreement with the land that didn't need rushing. I picked up my pen and wrote at the bottom of the page in capital letters, "What does he actually want?" Then I went inside and started dinner, because whatever was coming, it wasn't going to come tonight, and a man still has to eat. That night I lay awake for a while staring at the ceiling, and I thought about those 4 banker's boxes sitting in the guest house 20 yards from my back door. I thought about the way Frank had looked at my property. I thought about Patty's practiced wobble on the word grateful. And I thought about something my father told me the second time I ever worked on an engine that was running wrong. He said, "The machine isn't lying to you, son. It's telling you exactly what's happening. You just haven't learned to hear it yet." I was listening now. Ray Kowalski called me on a Tuesday morning in early May, and I knew before I answered that something had happened. Ray was not a phone call kind of man. In 12 years of leasing my eastern parcel, he had called me exactly 9 times, I know, because I kept a log. 3 of those calls were about equipment that needed repair. 2 were about a fence line dispute with a neighboring property that we sorted out in an afternoon. 1 was to tell me his wife had passed because he thought I should hear it from him directly and not through the county grapevine. The other 3 were practical things, short and factual, resolved inside of 5 minutes. When his name came up on my screen at 7:14 on a Tuesday, I set down my coffee and picked up on the first ring. "Ray, Walter." His voice had the particular flatness of a man trying to stay calm about something that was bothering him considerably. "I need to tell you about a conversation I had yesterday afternoon." My hand tightened around the phone. "Go ahead." Frank Harlow came out to the field around 4 o'clock. I was running the disc harrow on the north section. Ray paused and I could hear him breathing through his nose, steady and measured. He introduced himself as Claire's father-in-law, which I already knew. Then he told me that, going forward, any questions about the lease, any changes to the arrangement, any issues with the property, all of that was going to go through him. The tightness in my chest moved up into my throat. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the east field. From this distance I could see Ray's barn, the tree line the pale green of the early corn coming up in even rows. All of it at mine, and someone had just told the man farming it that I was no longer the point of contact. "He said that directly," I asked, "that it would go through him." Word for word. Ray's voice had an edge to it now, something dry and controlled. "He said you'd been thinking about bringing in some help with the management side, given your age and the size of the operation. Said it made sense to have a family member handling the administrative end. Given your age." I pressed 2 fingers hard against the bridge of my nose and breathed out slow. My jaw ached from how tight I was holding it. I wanted to say something sharp and satisfying, the kind of thing that relieves pressure in the moment and costs you later. Instead, I counted to 4 the way I used to do in meetings when a contractor was telling me something was structurally sound when I knew perfectly well it wasn't. "What did you say to him?" I asked. "I told him I'd have to talk to you." Ray let that sit for a second. "Walter, I've been farming your land for 12 years. I know what our arrangement is. I know whose name is on the lease. I'm not going to take instruction from somebody I met 48 hours ago, but I also didn't want to make a scene on your property without knowing what you wanted me to do." My throat tightened. 12 years. Ray had driven his equipment over my land for 12 years and never once tried to take an inch more than what the lease allowed. He was calling me because he respected the arrangement enough to protect it, and because he was smart enough to know that protecting it meant telling me first. "Ray," I said, "I want you to do something for me. Name it. The next time Frank comes to you with anything, a suggestion, a request, a casual conversation about the property, I want you to listen. Be polite. Don't agree to anything. Don't sign anything, but don't shut him down, either. Just let him talk." I pulled out the legal pad from the drawer and uncapped my pen. "And then I want you to write down exactly what he said. Time, place, specific words. Can you do that?" A pause. Ray was thinking it through the way a careful man does before he commits to something. "Yeah," he said finally. "Yeah, I can do that. One more thing." My pen was moving now, adding to the right column. "If you see anything unusual on the property, anybody you don't recognize, any vehicles you haven't seen before, anything that strikes you as out of place, I want to know about it. Same day if you can." "Walter," Ray's voice dropped a register. "Is something going on that I should understand better?" I looked out the window again. The corn rows were perfectly straight the way Ray always put them in. The man did everything in straight lines. It was one of the things I'd always appreciated about him. I'm not sure yet, I said honestly. I'm still reading the situation, but I trust your judgment, and right now, your eyes on that property are worth more to me than you know. Ray made a sound that wasn't quite a word, something between agreement and concern, and we ended the call. I stood at the kitchen window with the legal pad open in my hand and wrote down everything he'd told me, Frank's exact words, the time, the location in the north section of the field, given your age. I underlined that last part 3 times. The pen pressed hard enough that I could feel it through the page. Here was what I understood about what Frank had done. It wasn't random. A man who goes out to the East Field 48 hours after arriving and introduces himself as the new administrative contact to a tenant who has a 12-year relationship with the property owner, that man has a sequence in mind. You don't start at the middle. You start at the edges. The relationships, the people who interact with the property regularly. You establish presence. You normalize your authority in small conversations before anyone thinks to question it. He was building a paper trail of presence, and he'd started with the most visible, most established part of my operation. My hand was steady when I wrote, but something under my sternum was burning the way it does when I recognize a problem that's been running longer than I knew. I thought of the banker's boxes again. The labels on them I hadn't been able to read. I needed more information, and I needed it from someone who knew what to do with it. I picked up the phone again and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in almost 2 years. Meg Torres. I'd gotten her name from the attorney who handled my third property purchase back in 2009, a woman who specialized in agricultural real estate law in Columbia County, with an office above a bookstore on Warren Street in Hudson. The attorney who referred her had said 2 things: she's thorough, and she doesn't tell you what you want to hear. Those were exactly the 2 qualities I needed right now. She picked up on the third ring, and her voice was brisk and unhurried, at the same time the voice of someone who had a full schedule and managed it without drama. Meg Torres. Ms. Torres, my name is Walter Gaines. I own agricultural property in Columbia County, 5 parcels total of 260 acres. I think I have a situation developing, and I'd like to come in and talk through it with you. A brief pause, not hesitation assessment. How soon? As soon as you have something available. I have Thursday at 2, she said. Bring whatever documentation you have. Deeds, lease agreements, anything that's been put in writing in the last 6 months. I'll be there. Mr. Gaines. Her voice didn't change in tone, but something in it sharpened slightly. Before Thursday, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything verbal either. If someone asks you to make a decision about your property between now and then, tell them you're thinking it over. I looked down at the legal pad in my hand. Right column, 3 lines from the bottom, I had written, "What does he actually want?" "I've been doing that," I said. "Good," she said. "Keep doing it." Meg Torres's office was on the 2nd floor of a building on Warren Street in Hudson, up a narrow staircase that smelled like old wood, and whatever the bookstore below was brewing for its afternoon customers. The door at the top had her name on it in plain black lettering, no firm name, no list of specialties, just Meg Torres, attorney at law. The kind of sign that belongs to someone who doesn't need to advertise. I knocked, and she told me to come in. The office was small and densely organized in the way that working spaces get, when someone has been doing the same serious work in the same room for a long time. Files on shelves labeled by year and county, a desk that had seen better decades but was clearly not going anywhere. 2 client chairs across from her wooden, no cushions, the kind that communicate without saying so directly that this is a place for business and not for getting comfortable. Meg Torres was somewhere in her early 50s with reading glasses pushed up on her head and the kind of steady, unimpressed expression that I associated with people who had heard every version of every story and knew which parts mattered. She did not stand up when I came in. She gestured to the chair across from her desk and said, "Sit down, Mr. Gaines. Tell me what's happening. No background, no context. You think I need just the facts in the order they occurred." I sat down. I opened my folder. I had brought the deed to all 5 parcels, the lease agreement with Ray Kowalski, and the legal pad with my notes, and I told her everything, exactly as it had happened in sequence without adjectives. The phone call from Claire, Frank and Patty arriving, the banker's boxes, Frank going out to Ray's field and introducing himself as the new administrative contact, the phrase "given your age." Meg listened without moving her face. She wrote on a yellow legal pad, her own, not mine, and she did not ask a single question until I stopped talking. When I finished, She looked at her notes for a moment, then looked at me. How long have they been on the property? 3 weeks. And your daughter? Where is she in this? My chest tightened the way it always did when Claire came up in my thinking lately. She made the initial request. I don't know how much she understands about what her in-laws are doing. Meg wrote something down. All right, let me tell you what you're dealing with legally, and then I want to run something while we talk. She turned to her computer without waiting for me to respond. Your land in Columbia County is it? Inside an agricultural district, is it safe? Most of it, 4 of the 5 parcels. Good, she typed without looking at the keyboard. Under New York's agricultural district law, that's Article 25 AEA of the Agriculture and Markets Law, land enrolled in an agricultural district has specific protections. Any transfer or change in agricultural use requires notice to the county. It can't just happen quietly. If someone tries to push through a conveyance on your property without following that process, it flags immediately. She glanced up. That's useful to you. Okay. Second thing, she pulled a printed form from a drawer and set it on the desk between us. Power of attorney in New York. If someone presents you with one of these and asks you to sign it, regardless of how it's described to you, management agreement, caretaking arrangement, whatever language they use, a valid POA in this state requires notarization, and 2 witnesses at the time of signing, both present, both signing. If someone hands you a document without those elements already in place, it is not a valid power of attorney under New York General Obligations Law, Section 5-1501B. She tapped the form with one finger. Do not let anyone rush you through a signing without those elements. A legitimate document doesn't need to be rushed. My throat tightened. I thought of those banker's boxes. I thought of Frank's hand moving to the back of his neck when I'd asked him about the lease. I'll remember that, I said. Third, Meg's voice stayed level, but something in her focus sharpened. New York Social Services Law Section 473 defines financial exploitation of a vulnerable elderly person as a crime. If someone uses deception, intimidation, or undue influence to obtain control over a person's property or finances, and that person is 60 years of age or older, that is elder financial abuse, and the district attorney can prosecute it as a felony depending on the value of the assets involved. She looked at me directly. You're 65. Your property is worth how much? Assessed at just under $2 million. Fair market probably closer to 2.4. She wrote that down without reacting to the number. Then the value threshold for a felony prosecution is met many times over. She set her pen down and folded her hands on the desk. I want to be clear about something, Mr. Gaines. I'm not telling you a crime has been committed. I'm telling you that if a crime is committed, the law is not on the other side. It's on yours. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Not relief exactly, but the particular settling feeling of being on solid ground after walking on something uncertain. There's something else, I said. The phrase given your age. They used it directly with my tenant. Meg's expression didn't change, but her eyes moved. That's consistent with a pattern, establishing a narrative of diminished capacity before you've shown any signs of it. It creates context for things that come later. She turned back to her computer and typed something. Let me look at something. She was quiet for almost 2 minutes. I sat with my hands on my knees and watched her face. Whatever she was reading, she read it twice. Frank Harlow, she said. Used to hold a real estate broker's license in New York. License lapsed in 2015. Prior to that, she stopped, leaned closer to the screen. Her jaw tightened just slightly enough that I noticed it. There's a civil case in Greene County from 8 years ago. Real property dispute. Frank Harlow is named. She sat back in her chair. I need to pull the full record on this. I can't tell you yet what it means, but I want you to know I'm looking at it. My hands pressed harder against my knees. Greene County. 8 years ago. What kind of dispute? I asked. I don't have enough detail yet. Could be nothing. Could be relevant. She looked at me steadily. I don't speculate, Mr. Gaines. I'll have more for you when I have more. She reached for her legal pad again. Now, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. All right. Is there any money moving in this family that you're not aware of? Between your daughter and her in-laws, between your son-in-law and his parents? Anything financial that you've been told about in vague terms or not told about at all? Immonent, the question landed in my chest like a stone dropping into still water, sending rings outward in every direction. I thought about Claire's voice on the phone, the fatigue in it, the clipped efficiency that wasn't her natural rhythm. I thought about Dennis, who had never called me himself about this arrangement. I thought about irons in the fire and a landlord who decided to sell. "I don't know," I said. "I don't know what I don't know." Meg nodded, like that was exactly the answer she had expected. "Then that's what we find out next." She made a note. "I'm going to set up a few things on my end before we talk again. In the meantime, I want you to continue exactly as you have been. Don't signal anything. Don't change your behavior. Let them move." She looked up. "And Mr. Gaines, don't sign a single piece of paper that comes from that family without calling me first. I don't care if it's a birthday card with a line on the bottom. You call me." I picked up my folder from my lap and stood up. My knee ached going from seated to standing, the March cold still lodged in the joint. I ignored it. "Ms. Torres," I said, "the attorney who referred you to me said you're thorough, and you don't tell people what they want to hear." She pulled her reading glasses down from the top of her head and opened a new file on her desk. "He wasn't wrong," she said. "I'll be in touch about Greene County." I walked back down the narrow staircase and out onto Warren Street. The afternoon light was hitting the storefronts at a low angle the way it does in Hudson in May, when the season is finally committing to itself. I sat in my truck for a few minutes before starting the engine, and I looked at the legal pad open on the passenger seat. Right column, bottom of the page. What does he actually want? Underneath it I wrote a new line. What does he already have that I don't know about? I started the truck and drove home, and the whole way back I thought about a question that Meg Torres had asked me, the one about money moving in the family. And I thought about how the worst readings are the ones where the gauge is telling you something wrong has been happening for a long time before you thought to check it. I drove home from Hudson with Meg's question sitting in the passenger seat like a third person. "Is there any money moving in this family that you're not aware of?" I turned it over the whole way back up Route 9, stowed up past the farm stands that were just starting to put their signs out for the season, past the old dairy operation outside of Greenport that had been converted to a vineyard sometime in the last decade. The landscape was familiar in the way that things you've looked at for 30 years become familiar, not something you see anymore, just something you move through. But that afternoon I was seeing it. The fields, the fence lines, the long, flat stretches of river bottom land. All of it, the kind of ground that takes a lifetime to accumulate and a signature to lose. When I got home, I put the kettle on, sat down at the kitchen table with the legal pad, and I did something I had not let myself do since Claire's first phone call in March. I went back 3 years, not to find anything specific, just to read the record the way I would read a maintenance log on equipment I hadn't looked at closely enough. You start at the beginning, you go line by line. You don't skip entries because they seem minor, because in my experience the minor entries are where the problem actually started. Year 1, Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Dennis and Claire drove up from Albany, arrived around noon. Frank and Patty came separately their first time at the farm, invited by Claire, which I had not thought anything of at the time. We ate at the long table in the dining room. Frank had asked somewhere between the sweet potatoes and the pie how many acres I was carrying these days. I had told him. 260. He had nodded slowly like he was doing math in his head that he wasn't going to share. I wrote that down. Column 2. Things I should have paid more attention to. That same visit Patty had asked Claire to show her around the guest house. Claire had given me a look that said she hoped I didn't mind, and I had waved them off because it seemed harmless. They were gone for 20 minutes. When they came back, Patty said something about what a lovely space it was. So much potential, such a shame to leave it empty. Such a shame to leave it empty. I had laughed it off at the time. I wrote it down now because nothing that comes from a mouth like Patty's is accidental. Year 2. Last summer. Claire called in July to tell me that she and Dennis were saving hard for a house, that they had a number in mind, and a timeline, that things were tight but they were managing. She had sounded tired in a way I had attributed to the heat and the long hours she was putting in at the firm. She had not mentioned Frank or Patty once during that call. Dennis had not called at all that summer. I wrote that down and stared at it. Dennis, in 4 years of being married to my daughter, had called me exactly 11 times. I knew this because I checked the call log on my phone right there at the kitchen table. 11 calls in 4 years. 8 of them had been in the first year when things were still new, and he was making the effort that men make at the beginning. After that, the calls had dropped to almost nothing. Not hostile, just absent. I thought about the Thanksgiving table. Dennis had sat at the far end next to his father. He had eaten and listened, and when Frank spoke had not contradicted him once. Not on anything. I had thought it was simply the way some men were with their fathers. Deferential, shaped by years of a particular dynamic. I was not so sure about that anymore. I added a column to the legal pad. Not left, not right, a third column narrow down the middle. This one I labeled pattern or coincidence. And I started filling it in. Frank asking about acreage at Thanksgiving pattern. Patty and the guest house pattern. Dennis's calls dropping off after the first year, pattern or coincidence. I put a question mark. Claire sounding exhausted every time I asked how things were going financially. Pattern. The fact that when Claire had called me in March about Frank and Patty moving in, she had not once said, "I think this is a good idea." She had only said, "It makes sense, it's practical." You have the space pattern. There is a specific kind of tiredness that comes from being managed. I had seen it in workers over the years, good workers, competent people, who had been slowly rerouted by a supervisor who needed them to need him. The tiredness wasn't from working hard. It was from constantly adjusting their own judgment to fit someone else's version of what was true. After enough time, they stopped trusting what they saw with their own eyes. Claire's voice on the phone had that tiredness in it. It had been there for at least a year, maybe longer, and I had told myself it was adulthood, the weight of bills and schedules and the particular grind of being 30-something in a world that costs more every year. I had been wrong. Or I had been comfortable with being wrong, which was worse. My hand was moving steadily across the legal pad, filling in the middle column, and I noticed that my jaw was tight and my shoulders were up near my ears, the way they got when I was working through something that made me angry. I set the pen down. I made myself breathe out slow. I rolled my shoulders back. Anger was a pressure gauge, useful for telling you something was wrong, not useful for fixing it. I picked the pen back up. By the time the kettle had gone cold and the light outside had shifted from afternoon to early evening, I had filled 4 pages. And here is what I had. 3 years of small adjustments, a question about acreage, a comment about empty space, a pattern of Dennis being physically present at family events and functionally absent from the relationship. Claire's gradual shift from a daughter who called me with news to a daughter who called me with requests, not her requests, but requests she had been handed and asked to deliver. Nobody had moved the line a foot. They had moved it an inch at a time so many times that the original position was no longer visible. I sat back in my chair and looked at what I had written. The kitchen was getting dark, and I had not turned on a light, and for a moment I just sat in the dimness with the legal pad on the table and 4 pages of careful documented observation in front of me. Then I picked up the phone and called Frank. He answered on the second ring, his voice easy and warm. "Walter, everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I've been thinking about the guest house. I wonder if you and Patty might be more comfortable there than where you are now. It's larger, more private, better light in the mornings." A pause, half a second. "Well, that sounds great actually. We'd appreciate that." "Come by tomorrow morning," I said. "I'll show you through." I put the phone down and looked at the window over the sink, where the last of the evening light was going out behind the tree line on the east field. The guest house was larger. It was also the property where I had installed a security camera system the previous October when I'd had trouble with deer hunters coming through without permission. Frank didn't know that. That was not an accident. That was the first trap. Frank was at my door at 8:15 the next morning, which told me 2 things. The first was that he hadn't slept much. The second was that whatever he had planned for the guest house, he had been waiting for, this opening longer than he'd let on. I poured him a cup of coffee. He took it black, which I noted because it was the first genuine thing I'd observed about him, and we walked the 120 yards across the property to the guest house together. The morning was clear and cool, the kind of early June day in the Hudson Valley that makes you understand why people have been farming this ground for 300 years. The fields were fully green now, raised corn already knee-high along the eastern fence line, the whole property doing what good land does when you leave it alone and let it work. Frank walked beside me, with his hands in his jacket pockets and his eyes moving across the landscape in that same pricing way I'd noticed the day he arrived. He was doing it more openly now, like a man who had decided he didn't need to be subtle about it anymore. His gaze went to the barn, to the equipment shed, to the tree line along the creek at the south end. "Good drainage on this property," he said. 40 years of tile work," I said. "Put most of it in myself. Smart investment." He nodded like he was appraising the decision. Land like this, properly managed, throws off real value. Properly managed. I kept my face neutral and my stride even. I unlocked the guest house and pushed the door open and let him go in first. He stepped inside and did the same slow turn he'd done the first day sealing Windows layout. But this time, he went further. He walked to the window that faced the eastern parcel and stood there for a moment, looking out at Ray's operation. Then he went to the back bedroom and looked out that window too, which faced the barn and the equipment shed. He was mapping sightlines. I stood in the main room and watched him and did not say anything, because sometimes the most useful thing you can do is give a man enough space to show you exactly what he's looking at. Patty came through the front door behind me, slightly breathless, a smile already assembled. She went straight to the kitchen and opened the cabinet under the sink, then the cabinet above the stove. She was checking storage, measuring the space with her eyes the way you do when you're deciding where things will go permanently, not temporarily. "This is just wonderful," she said, closing the cabinet and turning around with her hands clasped together. "It's so much warmer than where we've been. You can really feel the difference." "South-facing windows," I said. "Gets the morning light." Frank came back from the bedroom and stood in the center of the main room. His coffee cup was in his hand, and his expression had settled into something satisfied and slightly proprietary, like a man who has just confirmed what he already believed. "We'll take good care of it," he said. "I know you will," I said. That afternoon, while Frank and Patty were moving their things from the original cottage to the guest house, I went into the small utility room off the back hallway and checked the camera system. I had installed 4 cameras the previous October, 2 covering the exterior approaches, 1 angled across the common area between the guest house and the main property, 1 positioned to capture the driveway and any vehicles coming in from the road. The system ran to a recorder in the utility room and backed up automatically to an off-site server every 6 hours. I checked the feeds, confirmed they were all live, and relocked the utility room door. Frank and Patty spent the next 2 weeks making themselves at home in a way that went several degrees past comfortable. Frank was out on the property every morning by 7:30, not walking surveying. He moved along the fence lines with deliberate steps, stopping to look at the drainage tiles, where they were visible at the field edges at the equipment shed at the access road that ran along the north side of the eastern parcel. Ray called me on a Wednesday to say Frank had shown up at the field again and asked specific questions about the lease renewal timeline. "What did you tell him?" I asked. I told him I didn't know the exact dates offhand and I'd have to check my paperwork. Ray's voice had the particular dryness of a man who was being patient about something that was testing his patience. "Walter, how long are we doing this?" "A little longer," I said. "You're doing exactly right. Keep the records." "Already got 3 pages, Ray said. Dates, times, what he said word for word. Something warm moved through my chest when he said that, not quite pride, but the feeling adjacent to it. 12 years. The man kept his word in straight lines the same way he put in his cornrows. Then, on a Thursday afternoon in the 3rd week of June, Frank knocked on the door of the main house. He was carrying a manila folder, and he had Patty with him, which told me this was not a casual visit. People bring witnesses to transactions. "Got a few minutes?" he said. "Sure." I stepped back and let them in. We sat at the kitchen table. Frank set the folder down and opened it and slid a document across to me. It was several pages printed on plain paper, and he had a pen ready in his hand before I had even touched the first page. "It's just a management agreement," he said. "Basically formalizes what we've been doing anyway, me helping out with the property, being a point of contact for the tenants, handling some of the day-to-day coordination. Saves you the trouble." I picked up the document. I read the title first, then the first paragraph, then the definitions section. My jaw tightened so hard I felt it in my back teeth. I kept reading all the way through to the signature block on the final page. This was not a management agreement. This was a power of attorney, full and durable, covering real property financial accounts and legal decisions. If I had signed it, Frank Harlow would have had the legal authority to sell my land, access my accounts, and make binding decisions about my estate, all without my further involvement or consent. The language was dense, and the structure was designed to look like something less than what it was, but the operative clauses were clear to anyone who knew how to read them. And there was something else. There was no notarization block, no witness signature lines. Under New York general obligations law, a power of attorney without notarization and 2 witnesses present at signing is not worth the paper it's printed on. It is legally void. A man who had done this before, which I was increasingly certain Frank would know that. Which meant either he was counting on me not knowing it, or he was planning to add those elements after I signed, which was its own category of problem. I set the document down on the table. I folded my hands on top of it. I looked at Frank. "This isn't a management agreement," I said. His expression didn't flicker. "It's just a formality. Gives me the ability to act on your behalf when you're not available, sign for deliveries, talk to the county, that kind of thing." "Frank," I kept my voice even the way I used to keep it when I was telling a contractor that the work wasn't acceptable and we were going to have to do it again. "This document gives you authority over my real property and my financial accounts. That is not a delivery signature." I tapped the last page. "Also, there's no notarization block and no witness lines. Under New York law, a power of attorney without those elements is not valid. I assume you know that." The satisfied look went out of his face the way a light goes out suddenly and completely. Patty's hands, which had been resting on the table, moved to her lap. Frank picked up his pen and turned it over in his fingers once. "I can have those added." "I'm sure you can," I said, "but I won't be signing this document in any form. If you'd like to have a conversation about a genuine limited property management arrangement with specific defined duties, I'm open to that conversation. But it would go through my attorney." I slid the folder back across the table. Frank looked at it. Then he looked at me with an expression I had not seen from him before. Not the pricing look, not the warm, assembled smile. Something quieter and harder, like a calculation being revised. He picked up the folder. He stood up. Patty stood up a half second after him. "Of course," he said. "We'll talk more about it." "Sure," I said. I walked them to the door. I watched them cross the yard back toward the guest house. Frank's shoulders were set differently than usual, something compressed about the way he was carrying himself. I went back to the kitchen table and sat down and picked up my pen. He had just shown me the document. He had shown me exactly what he wanted and exactly how he planned to take it, and he had done it before I was ready to stop him, which meant he was more impatient than I had calculated. Impatient men make mistakes. I wrote that in the right column of the legal pad and underlined it once. Then I called Meg Torres and told her what had just happened. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said, "He brought it to you himself, in your home." "Yes? Good," she said, and her voice had a particular quality to it. Not satisfaction exactly, but the recognition of a thing that was going to matter later. "Keep the document if he left a copy. If he didn't write down everything you remember about the language right now, before it fades, date it, sign it. He took it with him. Then write," she said. "I'll be in touch. And Walter, don't call your daughter about this yet." I asked her why. "Because I need to know something first," she said, "and I'm close to knowing it. Before I tell you what Meg found, and I want to warn you, it was not about the land at all. I need to ask you something first. If you have ever had a feeling that something was wrong in your family, but you could not name exactly what it was, not a fight, not an obvious betrayal, just a small and persistent wrongness that you kept talking yourself out of, drop the number 7 in the comments right now. Because what I am about to tell you is the moment I understood that I had been feeling that wrongness for 3 years and calling it nothing. I will be back in a moment. Stay with me. Meg called on a Thursday morning in early July, and she opened with 4 words that told me everything about what was coming. "Sit down," she said. "Please." In 2 months of working together, Meg Torres had never said please to me. She was not an unkind woman, but she was an efficient one, and pleasantries were not part of her professional vocabulary. When she added that word, my stomach dropped the way it does when a reading comes in, outside acceptable range, and you already know the repair is going to be expensive. I sat down at the kitchen table. "Tell me, your daughter and her husband are carrying $89,000 in debt," Meg said. "Credit cards, a vehicle loan, some medical bills from 2 years ago. It's been accumulating for approximately 3 years. She paused. "That part isn't unusual. What's unusual is where a significant portion of the money went." My hand pressed flat against the table. "Frank, through Dennis's personal account," she said. "Not the joint account he shares with Claire, a separate account she doesn't have access to. The transfers went out in installments over 18 months. No formal loan agreement, no repayment schedule, no documentation of any kind." Her voice stayed level, but something underneath it had gone careful and precise the way her voice got when she was about to say something that mattered. "Frank is holding that debt, Walter. No paperwork means no terms, which means he decides when it's due and what it costs." I stood up from the table without deciding to. My legs just did it. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the east field where raised corn was tall now and moving in the July breeze in long, slow waves. All that green, all that patient, productive land. My chest felt like something inside it had cracked along a seam I hadn't known was there. Claire didn't know. That was the thing that landed hardest, not the number. Not Frank's calculation, but the image of my daughter sitting across a kitchen table from her husband believing they were in this together, not knowing that $89,000 of their shared future had been quietly redirected through a door she didn't even know existed. She was a bookkeeper. She understood numbers the way I understood torque specifications. And Dennis had hidden this from her in plain sight in an account with his name only moving money in amounts small enough not to trigger immediate alarm. "Walter?" Meg's voice came through the phone, grounding me. "Are you still there?" "I'm here." My voice came out rougher than I intended. I cleared my throat. "She doesn't know." "Almost certainly not," Meg said. "The account structure suggests it was specifically designed to keep her out of it." I put my free hand against the window frame and pressed until I could feel the wood grain against my palm. I needed something solid. The anger moving through me was the kind that starts cold and gets colder, not the hot kind that burns out fast. This was the kind that stays. "What do I do with this?" I asked. "Right now, nothing visible." Her voice was steady and deliberate. "If you confront Claire today, Frank knows you know. He adjusts. Everything we've built in the last 2 months becomes harder to use." A pause. "I know that's not what a father wants to hear." She was right. It was not what I wanted to hear. Every instinct I had was pulling me toward my truck, toward the highway, south to Albany, toward sitting across a table from my daughter and putting the truth in front of her, where she could see it clearly. But I had spent 40 years learning that the reading that makes you want to act immediately is exactly the reading that requires you to wait. "All right," I said. "What's next?" "I'm still pulling records," Meg said. "The Greene County matter I have more now, but I want to be certain before I bring it to you. Give me another week." After we hung up, I stood at that window for a long time. The corn moved in the field. A red-tailed hawk, maybe the same one I'd watched in March, maybe a different one entirely, worked the fence line with that same patient efficiency, riding the air without effort, waiting for the right moment. I thought about Claire's voice the last time we talked, the tiredness in it, the way she'd said things are fine when I asked the specific flatness of those 3 words when they come from someone who was working very hard to believe them. That night I called her, not to say any of what I knew, just to hear her voice, just to remind myself that underneath the number and the deception and the cold calculation of it, there was my daughter, a real person who had trusted someone and been betrayed by that trust in a way she hadn't discovered yet. She picked up on the 3rd ring, and when she heard my voice, her whole tone shifted, something loosening in it. The way things loosen when you've been holding tension a long time and someone you trust walks into the room. "Dad," she said, and just the word, just the way she said it, made my throat tighten until I had to look at the ceiling and breathe. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, "just calling to check in." She told me about a tomato plant she'd put in on the apartment balcony that had somehow survived the entire spring and was now producing actual tomatoes, small and slightly lopsided but real. She told me her coworker Linda had gotten a dog, a beagle named something ridiculous that she couldn't remember, and the dog had shown up at the office twice because Linda brought it in a tote bag and thought nobody noticed. She told me she'd been reading a book about the history of the Erie Canal that she'd found at a church sale for 50 cents and couldn't put down. She did not mention Frank once. She did not mention Dennis or money or the farm or any of it. For 45 minutes, she was just my daughter. I sat at the kitchen table, and I listened, and I laughed in the right places and asked questions about the tomato plant and the beagle and the Erie Canal. And the whole time my chest was full of the thing I was not saying. It pressed against my ribs from the inside, like air in a sealed chamber, but I held it, because here is what I heard underneath the words. Her laugh came back. Not right away. For the first 10 minutes, she was still in the clipped, efficient register she'd been living in lately, the voice of someone managing a situation. But somewhere around the tomato plant story, something shifted. Her sentences got longer. She stopped measuring them. She laughed at her own story before she finished telling it, which was something the real Claire always did, and the managed Claire had stopped doing months ago. By the end of the call, she sounded like herself. "I miss talking to you like this," she said. Her voice had gone quieter, something honest moving through it. My throat tightened. I pressed 2 fingers against the bridge of my nose and breathed once before answering. I miss it too, sweetheart. I should call more. We both should. A pause, then softer. Things have been kind of, I don't know, busy. Busy. The word people use when the true word is too big to say out loud in a casual phone call. I know, I said, and then, because I meant it, you're doing fine, Claire. She made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost something else. Yeah, she said. Okay, thanks, Dad. After we hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a while, looking at nothing in particular. The kitchen was quiet. Outside, the last of the July evening was settling over the fields, that particular blue-gray that comes between sunset and full dark in the Hudson Valley, when the land seems to hold its breath for a moment before the night takes over. I was still sitting there when I heard footsteps on the porch. The knock came hard, and certain the knock of someone who has decided not to be tentative about this anymore. I already knew who it was before I opened the door. Frank stood on the porch with the manila folder in his hand. He had added something to it. The folder was thicker than before. He had done work overnight. His jaw was set, and his eyes were direct, and the assembled warmth he usually kept running in his expression was turned down low tonight. I had some additional language added, he said. Addresses your concerns about scope. I think you'll find it reasonable. I held the door open. Come in. We sat at the kitchen table. He opened the folder and pushed the document across with the same pen ready in his hand. The document was longer now. Additional pages, denser paragraphs, the kind of additions that a man makes when he thinks the problem was insufficient detail rather than fundamental intent. I picked it up and read it the way I read everything, line by line, every clause. The notarization block was still missing. The witness lines were still absent. The core operative language, the authority over real property and financial accounts, was still there, dressed in different clothes, but structurally identical. I set it down. Frank, I said, keeping my voice level and my eyes on his. The notarization and witness requirements aren't a drafting preference. They're statutory. You can add as many pages as you want to this document, but without those elements present at the time of signing, it has no legal effect in New York State. I slid it back across the table. I won't be signing it. His jaw tightened. His fingers pressed into the edge of the folder. A vein along his temple surfaced briefly, then disappeared. He pulled the folder back and stood up without a word, and the silence he left behind him as he walked to the door was the loudest thing that had happened between us yet. He stepped out without looking back. I locked the door and stood in the kitchen. 3 days since Meg had told me about $89,000. 3 days of knowing what I knew and saying none of it. The pressure of it sat in my sternum like a stone. I picked up the legal pad. I wrote one line. He came back. Impatient men always come back. Then I wrote underneath it, and impatient men always show you what they need. I underlined it twice, put the pen down, and went to bed. But I lay there for a long time in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Claire's laugh coming back on that phone call, and about how much it was going to cost her when she finally found out what had been done in her name. 3 days after Frank walked off my porch with his folder, I started forgetting things. I left my keys on the wrong hook by the back door. I told Ray the same story about the drainage tile on the north field twice in one conversation, stopping myself halfway through the second, telling and shaking my head like a man embarrassed by his own mind. I told Frank when he came by to check on a leaking gutter he'd offered to look at that I was having some trouble keeping track of things lately. Getting older, I said, catching up with me. Frank's face did something careful and controlled when I said that. His eyebrows moved up just slightly, and something behind his eyes went very attentive the way a man's eyes go when he's just been handed the thing he's been waiting for. That happens, he said. His voice had gone gentle in a new way. Nothing to be ashamed of, Walter. That's what family is for. I nodded slowly like a man who appreciated being told that, like a man who was relieved someone understood. Every word of it was deliberate. Every forgotten key, every repeated story, every slow nod, constructed with the same precision I used to bring to a calibration job. You do not perform a convincing malfunction by guessing. You study the real thing first, then you replicate the specific signatures. I had watched my uncle in the last 2 years of his life. I knew what genuine cognitive slowing looked like. I knew the particular rhythm of it, the way a man loses the end of a sentence he started with full confidence, the way he looks slightly to the right when searching for a word, the way his frustration with himself surfaces and then disappears, because he can't quite hold on to that either. I did not do any of those things. I did the surface version, just enough to be seen, not enough to be tested. Frank, it turned out, was not looking closely enough to tell the difference. But Frank was also not entirely convinced. I understood this because of what Patty started doing the following week. She began calling Claire every other day. I knew because Claire mentioned it in passing during one of our calls, her voice carrying that particular neutral tone people use when they're describing something they haven't decided how to feel about yet. Patty's been checking in a lot, Claire said. She says she's worried about you. Worried how? I asked. Just... Claire hesitated, and in that hesitation I could hear her choosing her words carefully, which meant someone had asked her to. She says you seem a little off lately, forgetting things. She says you repeated yourself a few times last week. I'm 65, sweetheart, I said. I repeat myself sometimes. Claire made a sound that was not quite agreement. She said maybe it would be good to have more people around, to help. More people around. I wrote that down after we hung up. Then on a Wednesday afternoon in early August, I came back from walking the south fence line and went in through the back door quietly because my boots were muddy and I didn't want to track across the kitchen floor. The house was still. I was moving through the back hallway toward the utility room when I heard Patty's voice coming from the living room, low and deliberate, the voice of someone in the middle of a careful conversation. I stopped where I was. He repeated the same story about the drainage work 3 times in 1 week, Patty was saying. I could hear only her side. She was on the phone. And last Tuesday he couldn't remember whether he'd called Ray or not. Had to check his phone to find out. A pause while she listened. I know it's hard to hear, honey, but somebody needs to be paying attention. The property is too much for one person to manage, especially if... Another pause. We're not saying anything definitive. We're just saying it might be time to think about what makes sense going forward. Then Claire's voice came through the phone, audible from where I stood. Her voice was thick the way voices get when a person is pressing down on something that wants to rise. I don't want to push him, Claire said. He's so proud of that place. Patty's voice went warm and sorrowful in a way that made my jaw clench hard. Of course he is, honey. Of course. But loving someone sometimes means making hard decisions for them. Making hard decisions for them. I stood in the hallway with mud on my boots and my hand pressed flat against the wall, and I felt something move through my chest that took me a moment to identify. Because it was not a simple thing. It was grief and anger, and something that felt almost like guilt, though I had nothing to feel guilty about except, perhaps for every conversation in the past 3 years, when I had heard something in Claire's voice and told myself it wasn't mine to address. My daughter was on the other end of that phone call, genuinely worried about me. Genuinely. The fear in her voice was real, even if the information feeding it was manufactured. That was the cruelest part of what Patty was doing. She was not lying to Claire outright. She was feeding Claire's real love for me through a pipe that pointed the wrong direction. I did not walk into that room. I wanted to. Every muscle in my body leaned toward that doorway. I wanted to stand in the entrance and watch Patty's face go white and say very quietly that I had heard every word. That I had heard plenty of words I was not supposed to hear over the past 4 months, and I had written all of them down. Instead, I turned around and walked back out the way I had come. I sat on the back porch steps with my muddy boots in front of me, and I breathed through my nose until the cold anger settled back down into something I could use. Then I took out the legal pad and wrote down the time, the date, and everything I had heard word for word, while it was still exact in my mind. Patty had just told my daughter that her father was losing his mind. And Claire, who loved me, had believed it enough to be frightened. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at the front door on a Monday morning. A man I had never seen before, early 40s, dark jacket, holding a folder and a lanyard with an ID badge on it. He introduced himself as a caseworker from New York State Adult Protective Services. Someone had filed a report. His name was Gerald Marsh, and he had the particular manner of a man who had seen enough difficult family situations to have stopped being surprised by any of them. He was polite without being warm, thorough without being aggressive. He showed me his credentials before I asked a laminated ID from the New York State Office of Children and Family Services Adult Protective Services Division, and he explained carefully and without editorial that his office had received an anonymous report expressing concern about my welfare and my ability to manage my affairs independently. I invited him in. I poured 2 cups of coffee. I set one in front of him and sat down across the table and folded my hands and said, "Ask me whatever you need to ask." He opened his folder. "Mr. Gaines, can you tell me today's date? Thursday, August 15th, I said. 2024. He wrote that down. Can you tell me who the current governor of New York is? Theochel, I said. Took office in August of 2021 when Andrew Cuomo resigned. Before that, Mario Cuomo served 3 terms, then George Pataki, then Eliot Spitzer, who resigned in '08. David Patterson finished that term, then Cuomo again. I looked at him. Do you want me to keep going? I can get you back to Carrie if it's useful. Gerald Marsh looked up from his notepad. Something shifted slightly in his expression. Not surprise exactly, but recalibration. And that won't be necessary, he said. Can you tell me about your property? The parcels you own, how you manage them? I spent the next 20 minutes walking him through every parcel. The Claverack property, 40 acres, purchased 1987 drainage tile installed in stages between 92 and 98, currently leased to Ray Kowalski under a 3-year agreement renewed most recently in January of 2023. The River Bottom parcel, 61 acres acquired in 1994, floodplain restrictions under the Columbia County Comprehensive Plan, leased to a grain operation out of Germantown. The wooded hillside parcel, the creek property, the home farm. Every acre, every lease term, every restriction and covenant I had signed in 40 years of acquiring ground. Gerald Marsh's pen moved steadily across his notepad, and then slowed, and then stopped. He looked at what he had written. Then he looked at me. Mr. Gaines, he said, and his voice had shifted into something more direct. The report we received indicated you were showing significant signs of cognitive decline. Confusion, memory loss, difficulty managing daily tasks. He set his pen down on the table. I have to be straightforward with you. That is not what I'm observing. My jaw tightened. Not from anger from the particular controlled effort of a man keeping his face neutral when everything underneath it wants to move. No, I said. I don't imagine it is. He studied me for a moment. Do you have any idea who might have filed this report? I have a strong suspicion, I said. I also have an attorney. Her name is Meg Torres. She practices in Hudson, and I've already discussed with her the possibility that something like this might happen. I held his gaze. I want to be clear. I'm not accusing anyone right now. I'm telling you, I'm not surprised, and I'm telling you that whatever is in that report was not generated by concern for my welfare. Gerald Marsh was quiet for a moment. He picked his pen back up, wrote something, then looked at me with the careful directness of a man who was choosing his words inside the boundaries of what his position allowed. I can't discuss the source of the report, he said, but I can tell you that anonymous reports filed in the context of family property disputes are not uncommon in this office. He closed his folder, and I can tell you that today's visit has not produced any findings that would support further action on our part. Something in my chest loosened, not relief, but the solid click of a thing falling into place the way it was supposed to. One more thing, I said. This visit, your findings today are those documented in a formal record. They are, he said. Standard procedure. Every visit and its outcome goes into the file. I nodded. Good, I said. I'd like a copy of that documentation when it's available. He told me I could request it through the office, gave me the contact information, and stood up. We shook hands at the door. He walked to his car, a gray sedan, with a state plate, and I watched him back down the drive and turn onto the county road. Then I went inside and called Meg. She picked up on the second ring. I told her what had happened, start to finish. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. I counted before she spoke. He documented the outcome, she said. He did. I asked directly. Good. Her voice had that particular quality, again, not satisfaction, but recognition. Frank just handed us a formal government record stating that you are cognitively intact and fully capable of managing your affairs, filed by the state of New York. A pause. He filed that report to take something from you. Instead, he built something for us. My hand tightened around the phone. How much does this help? Considerably, she said. Add it to the pattern. Every move he makes that doesn't work is evidence of intent. He's not helping a concerned family member, he's running a campaign. And now the state of New York has a document that contradicts his central premise. She paused again. Walter, I need to tell you something about Greene County. I have the full record now. My stomach went tight. Tell me. Not on the phone, she said. Come in Thursday. Ray called on a Tuesday afternoon, and his voice had none of its usual steadiness. Walter, he said, There's been somebody on the property, not me, not anybody I recognize. My hand tightened around the phone. Tell me. Ray had first noticed the man, 10 days earlier, a heavy-set guy in a gray work jacket parking a dark pickup on the county road and walking the fence line along the eastern parcel with his phone out. Not hunting, not trespassing in the usual sense of a man cutting through to get somewhere. Positioned, stationary for long stretches, pointing the phone at the main house at the barn at the access road. At me twice when I'd been working outside. I didn't say anything right away because I thought maybe he was with the county, or as Ray said, survey crew, something like that. But survey crews don't come back 4 times in 10 days, and they don't park a quarter mile down the road. My jaw set hard. Did you get a plate number? Got it the 3rd time he came. Ray's voice tightened. And Walter, I had my phone out too. I recorded him on the east fence line for about 4 minutes. You can see his face clear. Something moved through my chest, not quite warmth, something sharper than that. 12 years. The man kept his word in straight lines. You did exactly right, I said. Send me the video and the plate. Don't say anything to anyone else. I called Meg before I even looked at the footage. She told me to send her everything and gave me the name of a contact at the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. By the next morning, the plate had a name attached to it. Boyd Messer, 51 years old, address in Greenport. 2 prior misdemeanors, nothing recent. No connection to Frank Harlow that appeared in any public record. But the camera in the guest house utility room had him on footage entering the eastern property at 11:47 on a Wednesday night, and again the following Thursday at 11:22. Both times he moved along the fence line with a phone or small camera angling toward the main house. The deputy who took the report was a compact woman named Reyes, who asked clean questions and wrote everything down without commentary. When I showed her the guest house footage, she watched it twice, then looked at me. You want to press charges? She said. I want him interviewed, I said. I want to know who hired him and what he was hired to do. Boyd Messer was brought in for questioning 2 days later. Meg told me afterward that he had lasted approximately 20 minutes before accepting the terms of a plea arrangement, a misdemeanor trespass charge, no jail time, in exchange for a full accounting of his involvement. Frank Harlow had hired him 6 weeks earlier. The instructions were specific photograph and video Walter Gaines, performing any activity that suggested physical difficulty, confusion, or diminished capacity. The footage was intended for submission to Adult Protective Services and to support a petition for emergency guardianship in surrogate's court. Boyd had been paid $800 up front and told to expect another $800 when the footage was delivered. He had never delivered it because the footage he'd gotten showed a 65-year-old man walking fence lines operating equipment and carrying lumber without any difficulty whatsoever. I thought about Boyd Messer standing on my fence line with his phone out, trying to catch me stumbling and getting nothing useful because I was not stumbling. What happens to Frank? I asked. Boyd's cooperation is part of the DA's file now, Meg said. But here's the important thing. Boyd has been instructed not to contact Frank or indicate in any way that he talked to us. Frank doesn't know Boyd gave him up. She let that settle. As far as Frank is concerned, Boyd got spooked and stopped. He thinks he's still operating without exposure. My chest tightened with something that felt almost like satisfaction, but had too many edges to be called that cleanly. Frank had just added criminal solicitation of surveillance to his ledger without knowing it was there. Come in Thursday, Meg said. Greene County and everything else. I want you to see it all at once. I said I would be there. After I hung up, I looked out at the east field where Ray's corn stood tall and full in the late August light row after perfect row. I picked up the phone and called Ray. Thank you, I said, for watching. Ray made a sound that was not quite modest and not quite dismissive. It's your land, Walter, he said. Somebody ought to be paying attention to it. Meg's office felt smaller on Thursday morning, or maybe the file she set on the desk between us just took up more space than its physical size warranted. It was thin, 12 pages, maybe 15, but she set it down the way you set down something that has weight independent of its mass, and she left her hand on top of it for a moment before she spoke. 8 years ago, she said, a woman named Dorothy Ellison lived alone on a 14-acre property outside of Catskill in Greene County. She was 71. Widowed, no children. Her nearest relative was a nephew in Pennsylvania who visited twice a year. Meg opened the file. Frank Harlow was introduced to her through a church acquaintance. Within 3 months, he had moved a family member into her guest cottage, established himself as her primary contact for property matters, and was in the process of obtaining power of attorney when Dorothy died of a heart attack. My hands pressed hard into my knees. The property went to a distant relative through interstate succession. Frank got nothing. Meg looked up. But not because anyone stopped him, because she died before he finished. The room felt very still. I looked at the file at the neat factual pages that documented a woman's last months, and a man's calculation running alongside them like a shadow. And I understood something I had not fully understood before. Frank Harlow had done this before. He had sat across a dinner table from a 71-year-old woman, the way he sat across mine, and he had smiled the same assembled smile, and he had moved someone into her guest cottage, and he had waited. Dorothy Ellison had simply died before he got what he came for. I was the second attempt. Better resource this time, more patient. My jaw ached from how tight I was holding it. My hands on my knees had gone white at the knuckles. "What does the DA say?" I asked. "The DA is interested," Meg said. "Elder financial abuse under social services law, 473, combined with the Boyd-Messer solicitation and the APS filing, it's a pattern, not an incident. That's what makes it prosecutable." She closed the file. "I've submitted everything. It's their timeline now." I nodded. "What do I do?" "Exactly what you've been doing," she said. "Don't change anything. Let him move." I drove home, slowly taking the back roads through Claverack instead of the highway, the way I sometimes did when I needed the extra 20 minutes to let something settle. The fields along those roads were going gold at the edges, the first hints of September pulling the green out of the corn. 8 years ago, Dorothy Ellison had looked at fields like these from her property in Greene County and had no idea what was being planned in her guest cottage. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for a while. Then Claire's car came up the road. She hadn't called ahead. She did that sometimes, just drove up from Albany on a Friday afternoon when the week had been long and she needed somewhere that wasn't the city. She stepped out of the car in jeans and old sneakers, her hair loose, and she looked younger than she had in months. Something about being away from whatever weight she was carrying in Albany made her face open up in a way I hadn't seen lately. "I brought peaches," she said, holding up a paper bag, "from that farm stand on 9W. My chest loosened in a way it hadn't all morning. "Get in here," I said. We walked the property after we'd eaten the way we used to when she was a teenager, and a walk meant a conversation that neither of us had to look at directly. The afternoon light was doing what September light does in the Hudson Valley, going golden and long-shadowed, making everything look considered and permanent. She stopped at the old wooden fence line along the south pasture, the one I'd rebuilt myself in 2003 with boards from a salvage place in Hudson. She put both hands on the top rail and looked out at the field. "I used to sit on this fence when I was little," she said. "You told me not to because the boards weren't solid yet." "They weren't. I did it anyway." She laughed, a real laugh, loose and easy, the kind that came from somewhere genuine. "Every time you went inside, I'd climb right back up." My throat tightened. I looked at my daughter standing at that fence in the September light, and I thought about Dorothy Ellison, who had no one to stand at a fence with, and about what Frank Harlow had tried to take from both of us. Claire didn't know any of it. She thought this was just a Friday afternoon visit, peaches and a walk. I let her keep thinking that. "I know," I said. "I could see you from the kitchen window the whole time." She turned and looked at me with an expression of complete outrage that broke immediately into laughter, and for a few minutes, we were just a father and daughter, standing at an old fence in the last of the summer warmth, and nothing else existed. It was the best hour of the whole 14 months. That evening, after Claire had driven back to Albany and the property had gone quiet, my phone buzzed on the kitchen table. Meg. A text, 3 words. Frank made a move. Meg called Monday morning, and her voice had the quality it got when she was holding something that required careful handling. "Pull up a chair," she said. "I found a quitclaim deed filed at the Columbia County Clerk's office on Friday afternoon. It transfers 47 acres of your eastern parcel to an entity called Harlow Property Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware. The grantor's signature reads, Walter Gaines." The room tilted slightly. I put my hand on the kitchen counter and pressed down hard. "I didn't sign anything," I said. "I know," she said. "I've already contacted a forensic document examiner. She can have a preliminary finding within 48 hours. A pause. "Walter, I run title searches on your parcels every 30 days. standard practice for clients with agricultural holdings. Frank filed this on a Friday afternoon. I caught it Monday morning. I stood at the counter and breathed through my nose and thought about a man who believed he was operating without exposure. Boyd Messer had gone quiet 6 weeks ago. The APS visit had produced nothing. From Frank's position, the situation had stalled, and stalled situations make impatient men take risks they shouldn't. He had no idea that Boyd had given him up. He had no idea that the DA already had a file with his name on it. He had moved on my property because he thought the window was still open. It wasn't. "What's Harlow Property Holdings?" I asked. "A single-member LLC incorporated in Delaware 8 weeks ago," Meg said. "Delaware registration is common for people who want to minimize public disclosure. The registered agent is a mail forwarding service in Wilmington. Frank is almost certainly the sole member, but that won't be immediately visible in the public record." Her voice went precise and unhurried. "The good news is that a quitclaim deed in New York requires a closing process to become effective. The deed was filed, but the transfer was never completed. Your land is still yours." Something in my chest unclenched by a degree. "Stuart Finch?" Meg continued. "That's the name on the notarization block. He's a paralegal who lost his license to practice in New York in 2019 for document irregularities. Frank found someone who knew how to make a deed look legitimate without the legal standing to make it actually legitimate. What happens now? I'm filing a lease pendens this morning. That's a notice of pending legal action recorded against the property title. It flags the parcel in the public record and prevents any further transactions until the matter is resolved." Her voice was steady and deliberate. "Then I'm calling the DA. What Frank just did is not a civil matter. Forging a property owner's signature on a deed transfer is forgery in the second degree under New York Penal Law 170.10. That's a Class D felony. Combined with the value of the property, 47 acres in Columbia County, is worth approximately $280,000. We're also looking at grand larceny in the third degree." My hand was so tight around the phone that my fingers had gone numb. I made myself loosen the grip. "And Stuart Finch, separate prosecution," Meg said. "He notarized a document he knew was fraudulent. That's his license gone permanently and likely 18 months. A brief pause. "Walter, there's one more thing. The eastern parcel sits inside an agricultural district. Any conversion or transfer of land in an agricultural district requires advance notice to the county under Article 25, AA of the Agriculture and Markets Law. Frank didn't file that notice. That's an additional violation on top of everything else." I looked out the window at the eastern parcel. 47 acres of good flat ground that Ray Kowalski had farmed for 12 years. That I had drained and fenced and managed since 1994, that a man I had allowed onto my property had just tried to put his name on with a forged signature and a dissolved paralegal and a shell company in Delaware. "File everything," I said. "Already started," she said. "And Walter Clare called me this morning. She doesn't know the details, but she knows something is happening. She asked me directly if her father was in trouble." My throat tightened until it hurt. "What did you tell her?" "I told her to call you," Meg said. "Tonight, I think. Be ready." Claire called at 9:14 that evening. I knew because I had been sitting at the kitchen table since 8:30, with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched, watching the clock move and thinking about what I was going to say and how much of it I was going to say and in what order. 40 years of working with complicated systems had taught me that the sequence of information matters as much as the information itself. You don't show someone every gauge reading at once. You start with what they can act on. Her voice when she spoke was tight and careful, the voice of someone who had been holding something all day and was finally putting it down. "Dad," she said, "Meg wouldn't tell me anything specific, but she told me to call you, so I'm calling you." "I know," I said. "I'm glad you did." "Is something wrong with the property, with you?" I looked at the untouched coffee cup. At the legal pad on the table, 4 months of careful documentation, stacked in a manila folder beside it. "The property is fine," I said. "I'm fine. But there are some things you need to know, and I want to tell you in person. Can I come down Friday?" A pause, then, "Yes. Dennis is out of town for work. It'll just be us." Something in me settled when she said that. "Good," I said. "I'll be there by noon." I drove to Albany on Friday through a light rain that turned the Hudson Valley gray and soft, the kind of October morning that makes the drive south feel longer than it is. I found Claire's apartment building on a side street off Washington Avenue, parked and sat for a moment before going up. She opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes were red at the corners, not from crying, from the particular strain of someone who had been trying very hard not to cry for longer than was comfortable. She pulled me into a hug that was tighter and longer than our usual ones, her hands pressing into my back like she was making sure I was solid. "Come in," she said. I made coffee. We sat at her kitchen table, a small round table near the window that looked out onto the wet street below, leaves plastered flat against the pavement. She wrapped both hands around her mug. Her knuckles were white. "Tell me," she said. So I told her. Not everything, not the $89,000, not Greene County, not the full scope of the DA investigation, but enough. I told her about the power of attorney Frank had brought twice about Boyd Messer, and the surveillance about the APS report about the quitclaim deed, filed with her father-in-law's company name on it, and a forged signature where mine was supposed to be. Claire listened without interrupting. Her face went through things I did not try to name, a tightening around the eyes, a compression of the lips, a moment where her jaw worked like she was physically processing something that didn't fit. When I finished, she put her mug down and pressed the heels of both hands against her eyes and held them there. "A forged deed," she said into her palms. Her voice had gone flat in a way that was worse than if she had shouted. "He forged your signature on a deed." "On a quitclaim deed, yes. My attorney caught it within 72 hours. The transfer was never completed." She dropped her hands. Her eyes were wet now, and she didn't do anything about it, just let the tears sit there while she looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen on her face since she was a child, and had discovered that something she believed to be true wasn't. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Her voice cracked on the last word. My chest tightened until I had to breathe carefully. "Because I needed to know where you were in all of it first, and because I needed you to be safe while I figured that out." She pressed her lips together hard. A tear ran down her left cheek, and she still didn't move to wipe it. "I'm not, Dad. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know about the POA. I didn't know about the man following you. I didn't know about the deed." "I know that," I said. "I know." She looked down at her mug. Her hands were shaking slightly around the ceramic, just a tremor, the kind that comes from holding tension in your muscles for too long. "Does Dennis know?" I looked at my daughter across that small kitchen table, at her wet eyes and her shaking hands, and the expression of someone standing at the edge of something she couldn't yet see the bottom of. I didn't answer the question. She looked up when the silence stretched. She looked at me with something shifting in her face, not confusion, but the beginning of understanding, the kind that arrives slowly and then all at once. "Dad," she said quietly, "does Dennis know?" "That's the right question," I said, "and you deserve the answer. But I think you need to find it yourself." She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded once slowly, the nod of someone who has just understood something they weren't ready for, but can no longer avoid. I drove home in the dark. Meg texted just before midnight. "DA confirmed hearing date. Time to set the table." I cooked that Saturday the same way I cooked every Saturday. Pork shoulder that had been in the oven since morning, potatoes from the garden, a salad with the last of the fall tomatoes. I set the table for 5. I put the 4 boxes in the back bedroom, and I did not bring them out until I was ready. Frank and Patty arrived at 6. Claire and Dennis came 15 minutes later. Dennis shook my hand at the door with the particular careful courtesy of a man who had been working hard to seem normal for several months. His hand was cold and dry. Claire came in behind him and met my eyes briefly across his shoulder, just for a moment, a look that carried more than either of us was going to say out loud, and then she went to help in the kitchen. We ate. The food was good, and the conversation was the kind that happens when 5 people are saying things that have nothing to do with what 5 people are actually thinking. Frank talked about a property auction he had read about in the paper. Patty asked about the garden. Dennis ate steadily and said very little, and kept his eyes on his plate more than was natural for a man with nothing to hide. I watched all of it and said nothing that mattered and waited. After the dishes were cleared, Frank set his forearms on the table and looked at me with the expression of a man who had decided the time for patience was over. He reached into the jacket he'd hung on his chair and pulled out a folder thinner than the previous ones, which meant he had simplified, which meant he thought simplicity was the remaining option. "Walter," he said, "I think we've been dancing around this long enough. This is a straightforward arrangement that protects everyone. I'd like us to resolve it tonight." He slid the folder across the table toward me. I looked at it, then I looked at Frank, then at Patty, whose hands were folded on the table with a stillness that cost her something. Then at Dennis, who was staring at a point just past my left shoulder with the fixed concentration of a man trying to be somewhere else entirely. Then at Claire, whose jaw was set and whose eyes were bright, with the particular brightness that precedes tears that a person has decided they are not going to shed. I stood up from my chair. "Give me 1 minute," I said. I went to the back bedroom. I picked up the 4 boxes I had packed them, carefully labeled, each one in my own handwriting, ordered the contents the way I used to order a discrepancy report. Logical sequence, clear documentation, no ambiguity. I carried them out and set them on the table next to Frank's folder. The room changed when I did that. I felt it, a shift in the air pressure, something that happens when people in a room simultaneously understand that the conversation they thought they were having is not the conversation that's actually occurring. Frank looked at the boxes. His jaw tightened. Patty's hands came apart on the table and then came back together. "Before anyone opens their mouth," I said, "I want everyone to look at what's in here." I opened the first box. Camera footage printed as still frames and time-stamped Frank measuring fence lines. Frank speaking to Ray Kowalski on the eastern parcel. Frank entering the barn without my knowledge on a Tuesday morning in July. Frank's face had gone very still. I opened the second box. The power of attorney he had brought to my kitchen table. Twice. Meg's written analysis attached 3 pages detailing exactly why the document constituted attempted fraud under New York law, and why a power of attorney without notarization and witnesses is not worth the paper it's printed on. Patty made a small sound, not a word, just a sound, and pressed her fingers hard against her mouth. I opened the third box. Ray Kowalski's written records, 4 months of documented conversations dated and signed, Boyd Messer's plea agreement with his signed statement describing in precise detail the instructions Frank had given him and the $800 he had been paid to execute them. The APS caseworker's formal findings stamped and signed, stating that Walter Gaines showed no signs of cognitive impairment whatsoever. Dennis looked at the Boyd Messer statement. His face went the color of old concrete. His hand moved to the edge of the table. I opened the 4th box. The quitclaim deed. The forensic examiner's report. 2 pages technical language, clear conclusion. The signature of Walter Gaines on this document is not authentic. The filing for Harlow Property Holdings, LLC, out of Delaware. The lis pendens. The DA's formal notice of investigation. Dennis saw the name Harlow Property Holdings, LLC, on the LLC filing. His chair scraped back. He stood up and walked out of the dining room without a word. I heard the front door open and then close, not slammed, just closed with the quiet finality of a man who understood that sitting at that table 1 more second was not something he was capable of. Frank looked at the 4th box for a long time. The assembled warmth, the pricing look, the careful smile, all of it was gone. What was underneath was something I had not seen before from him, and it was not anger. It was the particular expression of a man who has just understood that the position he believed he occupied does not exist. He looked at me. "I want to speak to my attorney," he said. "That's your right," I said. "I'd suggest you do it tonight." Claire was looking at me with an expression I felt in my chest, like a physical thing, not the bright-eyed, almost crying look from before. Something older and quieter, the look of a person who has just seen something they cannot unsee and is in the first moment of understanding what it means. "Did you know?" she said, and then she caught herself, switched back. "Did you know from the beginning?" "From the beginning," I said. Frank and Patty were out of the guest house by 10 o'clock that night. I didn't watch them pack. I sat on the porch with 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for Claire, who had come outside after Frank said he wanted his attorney, and the room had gone the particular way rooms go when everything that needed to be said has been said, and nothing useful remains. We listened to them moving around in the guest house, the sound of drawers opening and closing, the back and forth to the truck, the particular silence that falls between footsteps when people are trying to move quickly without appearing to. Frank crossed the yard to the porch once. He stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked up at me with an expression that had no performance left in it. No assembled warmth, no pricing calculation. Just a man standing in the dark trying to find something to say that would change the situation and coming up empty. "Walter," he said. "Good night, Frank," I said. He stood there for another moment. His hands moved at his sides, not reaching for anything, just moving the hands of a man whose body hadn't caught up to the fact that there was nothing left to do. Then he turned and walked to the truck. Patty was already in the passenger seat. I watched the headlights come on and sweep across the field and disappear down the county road. Claire wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. She had stopped trying to keep her face arranged into anything in particular, and what was underneath was exhaustion, not the managed tiredness of recent months, but something older and more honest. The exhaustion of someone who has been carrying something heavy, without knowing exactly how heavy it was until they finally set it down. "How long did you know?" she asked. "About what specifically?" She looked at me. "All of it. The POA, the surveillance, the deed. I knew about the POA from the first time he brought it. The surveillance I confirmed about 6 weeks ago. The deed, 72 hours. She absorbed that. A car went by on the county road below headlights, sweeping briefly across the field. An owl called from the tree line at the south end once, and then was quiet. "Why didn't you tell me about the deed when it happened?" "Because Meg needed 48 hours for the forensic examiner," I said. "And because I needed to know what I was putting in front of you before I put it in front of you, you deserve the full picture, not pieces of it." She pressed her lips together. Her eyes were wet again, had been off and on since the third box. She didn't do anything about it, just let the tears come and go the way you do when you've stopped trying to manage your own face. "I brought them here," she said. Her voice dropped until I had to lean slightly to hear it. "I'm the one who called you and told you they were coming. I made this happen." My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I set my coffee cup down on the railing and turned to face her directly. "Claire." I waited until she looked at me. "You made a phone call. You asked your father to help your husband's family. That is not what happened here." I kept my voice steady and my eyes on hers. "What happened here was done to you as much as it was done to me. You understand that?" She shook her head slightly, not disagreeing, processing. "Does Dennis—" she started, then stopped. Then, "When I asked you tonight if Dennis knew, you didn't answer." My hands pressed into the porch railing. The wood was cold and rough against my palms. "No," I said, "I didn't." She looked out at the dark field for a long moment. Her jaw worked. Her fingers had gone white around the coffee cup again. Then she said very quietly, "I think I need to go home." "I know," I said. "Drive carefully." She stood up and hugged me at the door, the same way she had in Albany, tight, both hands longer than necessary. When she pulled back, her face was wet and her eyes were red, and she looked more like herself than she had in a year. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart." I held the door frame and watched her walk to her car. "Call me when you get in." She did. 11:43. A text that said, "Home safe," and then nothing more that night. 14 days later, on a Tuesday morning, 2 investigators from the Columbia County DA's office went to Dennis and Claire's apartment building on the side street off Washington Avenue. Frank Harlow was there. He had moved in after leaving the farm, which told me everything I needed to know about how confident he had been that the situation was resolved in his favor. He was not there when they left. I was standing in the shop sharpening a hand plane iron when Meg called to tell me. I set the iron down on the bench and looked out the shop window at the eastern parcel at Ray's equipment, sitting quiet in the November field. "It's done?" I asked. "The arrest is done," she said. "The rest takes time. But yes, Walter, it's done." I stood in the shop for a while after we hung up. The hand plane iron was cold under my fingers, the steel worn smooth from 40 years of use. Outside the field was gray, and still in the November light, the corn long since harvested the ground, going dormant the way good ground does not, dead just waiting. I thought about Dorothy Ellison in Greene County, who had waited for someone to sit beside her, and no one had come in time. I picked up the iron and went back to work. She called at 11:17 on a Wednesday night in late November, and I knew from the first syllable that something had broken open. Not her voice breaking. Claire's voice did not break on that call. It was worse than that. It was completely flat, the flatness of a person who has gone so far past the point where crying is useful that they have come out the other side into something quieter and more permanent. I had heard that particular flatness once before in my life from a man at work whose son had been in an accident, and I had never forgotten what it sounded like or what it meant. It meant that the worst part had already happened and the person was still standing in it. "Dad," she said. I found something. I was already moving toward the hook by the door where my jacket hung. Tell me where you are. The apartment. I'm fine. I'm not. She stopped, started again. Dennis moved his things out on Saturday. I've been going through the office trying to separate what's mine from what's his. I found an old laptop in the closet. I thought it was mine. It wasn't. I had my jacket on and my keys in my hand. Claire, there's an email, she said. From Frank, 3 months before Dennis and I got married. Her voice went even quieter, which I had not thought possible. Dad, he planned it. Frank wrote it out. Dennis and me, he wrote it out like a business plan. Why Dennis needed to marry me, what they were going to get from it. He told Dennis not to tell me. A sound came through the phone, then not a sob. Something worse, the sound of someone pressing their hands against their mouth to keep something in. Dennis wrote back one word. Just one word. I stood in my kitchen with my keys in my fist and my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my jaw. I'm driving down, I said. Don't do anything. Don't call Dennis. Don't call anyone. I'm leaving right now. You don't have to. I'm leaving right now, I said again. I'll be there in under 2 hours. I made it in 1 hour and 40 minutes. The November highway was dark and nearly empty, just the occasional truck running south in the right lane, and I drove with both hands on the wheel and my eyes on the road, and my mind doing the thing it does when it cannot fix a problem, going back over the sequence, looking for the point where things could have gone differently, knowing there wasn't one, and looking anyway. Dennis Harlow had known before he married my daughter that his father intended to use her as access to my property. He had read Frank's plan, the cold, detailed, businesslike plan that laid out exactly what Claire was and what she was for. And he had written back one word. Understood. Not, I don't think we should do this. Not, I love her and I won't let you use her. Just understood like a man confirming he'd received a memo. I drove, and I did not let myself think about the wedding I had paid to attend, or the Thanksgivings I had sat through, or the handshakes at the door. I did not let myself think about any of that, because there was nothing useful in it, and I had 2 hours of driving to do, and a daughter waiting on the other side. Claire met me at the building door before I had finished parking. She was in a sweatshirt and socks, no shoes, which told me she had come downstairs the moment she saw my headlights from the window. Her face in the lobby light was dry and pale and very still, with the particular stillness of someone who has been holding something alone for 2 hours and is finally not alone. She didn't say anything. She just stepped forward and put her forehead against my shoulder and stood there, and I put my arms around her and held on, and we stayed like that for a long moment in the lobby of her building, while the fluorescent light above us hummed and the street outside was empty and quiet. When she stepped back, her eyes were dry. She had not cried, I realized, since she called me. She had been saving it. Come up, she said. I'll show you. The laptop was open on the kitchen table. I sat down and read the email twice. Frank's writing was exactly what I would have expected, efficient, unsentimental, organized. He laid out the situation in 3 short paragraphs. Walter Gaines' agricultural property in Columbia County, 260 acres assessed below fair market value, no male heirs, 1 daughter. Dennis's position as son-in-law would provide standing for the family in any property matter that arose. Frank outlined what he described as a long-term approach, patient and methodical. He told Dennis not to discuss it with Claire under any circumstances. He told Dennis that the timing would depend on Walter's age and circumstances. He told Dennis to be a good husband in the meantime, which was the sentence that hit the hardest, because of its complete absence of irony. Be a good husband in the meantime. Dennis had replied 4 hours later. 1 word. Understood. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. My chest was full of something that did not have a clean name. Anger was part of it, and grief was part of it, and something that felt almost like a mechanical recognition, the feeling of finally seeing how all the pieces fit together when you've been looking at the system from the wrong angle. Claire was sitting across from me, with her hands flat on the table and her eyes on the closed laptop. Her jaw was tight. Her shoulders were up near her ears the way they go when a person has been carrying tension in their body for a long time. He was kind to me, she said. Dennis. For 4 years he was kind, and he showed up and he remembered things, and he was patient when I was difficult. Her voice was steady and even, and completely terrible in its evenness. I keep trying to put those 2 things together, and they won't go. I know, I said. How do you know which one was real? I thought about that for a moment. The kind husband and the man who wrote understood. The 2 things that existed at the same time in the same person. Maybe both of them were real, I said. That doesn't mean the second one was all right. It just means people are more complicated than we want them to be when they hurt us. She looked at me. Something in her face shifted, not relief, something quieter. The beginning of being able to breathe. What do I do with this? She asked. Tonight, nothing. I stood up and went to her kitchen and put the kettle on, because some situations call for tea, and some situations call for the act of making tea, which is different. Tonight you let me sit here with you, and we talk about something else for a while. Or we don't talk at all. Whatever you need. She came and stood in the kitchen doorway, while the kettle heated, leaning against the frame, with her arms crossed over her chest, watching me find mugs and the box of tea she kept in the cabinet above the stove. You drove almost 2 hours, she said. You're my daughter, I said. The math isn't complicated. She made a sound that was almost a laugh, not quite, but the shape of one, which was enough. We sat at the table until past 2 in the morning. We talked about her mother, who had died when Claire was 6, and whom she remembered in fragments, a specific smell, a yellow cardigan, a song she couldn't name but could hum. We talked about the farm and about a summer when Claire was 11 and had tried to adopt a barn cat that wanted nothing to do with being adopted. We talked about nothing that had to do with Frank or Dennis or Deeds or the DA. And by the time I finally stood up to drive home, some of the terrible evenness had gone out of Claire's face and been replaced by something that looked more like tired ordinary. The tired of a person who has made it through a hard night, rather than the tired of a person who is still inside one. At the door she held on again. Longer this time. What happens to Dennis? She asked into my shoulder. He cooperates with the DA, I said. He tells them everything he knows, which is considerable. In exchange, he avoids prison. He pays back what he owes. I paused. He pays it back to you, Claire, not to me. She pulled back and looked at me. Something moved across her face, surprise, and then something more complicated, and then a single slow nod. Okay, she said. I drove home in the deep quiet of 2 in the morning, the highway empty in both directions, the fields dark on either side of the road. The November sky was clear and enormous the way it gets up here when the air goes cold and still, and I could see more stars than the light pollution usually allowed. I thought about something my father had said in the garage in Catskill when I was 12, and learning to read the instruments on an engine rather than going by feel. He had said the machine tells you what's wrong if you know how to listen to it. Most men don't listen. They assume. 4 years. Dennis had been in my house, at my table, shaking my hand at the door for 4 years. And I had assumed he was what he appeared to be, because I was listening to the wrong instrument. But I was listening now. And my daughter, who had been handed the very worst version of that lesson, was still standing. That was enough. For tonight, it was enough. The larch trees along the eastern fence line leafed out in early May, and I sat on the porch and watched it happen the way you watch something you've been waiting for, without knowing you were waiting for it. Spring in the Hudson Valley comes in stages not all at once. The willows go first, a haze of yellow-green along the creek banks, before anything else has committed to the season. Then the maples, then the oaks, last of all the larch, which is a tree that drops its needles in the fall, like a deciduous tree, even though it's a conifer, a thing I find consistently interesting. And that reminds me that most living things are more complicated than the category you put them in. I had a cup of coffee. Ray's truck was already out on the eastern parcel, visible from the porch, as a blue shape moving slow and patient along the far fence line. A red-tailed hawk was working the field between us, the same territory I'd watched one work in March of last year when all of this was just beginning. And I thought about that hawk and whether it was the same bird or a different one, and decided it didn't matter much either way. The work was the same. It had been 14 months. Frank Harlow had entered a guilty plea in March elder financial abuse under New York Social Services law and attempted grand larceny in the 3rd degree. The plea agreement came after his attorney spent 6 weeks trying to find a version of events that held together and could not, because Meg Torres had 14 months of documentation, and the DA had Boyd Messer's signed statement, and a forensic examiner's report, and a formal APS record stating that the man Frank had tried to declare incompetent had accurately recited 11 years of New York governors from memory. There was no version that held together. Frank took 4 years in a New York State correctional facility, with 3 years of supervised release to follow. Patty had cooperated. Her cooperation, which included a detailed account of her conversations with Claire and her role in the APS filing strategy, resulted in a suspended sentence and 5 years of probation. She had not contacted Claire since the hearing. Claire had not contacted her either. Stuart Finch had lost his paralegal certification permanently and was serving an 18-month sentence in a minimum security facility downstate. His attorney had argued that he hadn't understood the full scope of what he was facilitating, which the judge had found unpersuasive given that Finch had spent 12 years working with property documents and could not credibly claim ignorance of what a quitclaim deed was. Dennis Harlow, Frank's son Claire's husband, had cooperated fully with the DA from the week of Frank's arrest. His testimony had been, by Meg's account, thorough and remorseful, which were two qualities she noted without editorializing on their sincerity. He had paid back the amount transferred to Frank through his personal account, $89,000 in total, reduced to $81,000 after a portion was offset against documented joint expenses, a characterization his attorney and Claire's attorney had negotiated, down to something Claire could live with. The money came back to her in a structured arrangement over 18 months. Dennis received a suspended sentence, 2 years of probation, and the knowledge that he would spend the rest of his life being the man who wrote, understood to his father's business plan for his own marriage. I hoped that knowledge weighed something. I suspected it did. Claire's divorce had been finalized in February. She had kept the apartment which was in her name and a car that was paid off and a job she was good at. And the particular steeliness that comes from discovering you are stronger than the worst thing that happened to you. She had also kept me, which was the thing that mattered. She was coming up today. I had not told her about the larch. Meg had called the previous week to close out the formal engagement. We had spoken for perhaps 20 minutes. She reviewed the outcomes. I confirmed I had received the final documentation. She told me she'd note the file as resolved. At the end, she said in the same direct voice she had used for everything else, "You did this right, Walter. Most people don't." I had thanked her and meant it. After the call, I had sat at the kitchen table with the legal pad, the original one, the first one I had started in March of last year, and I read through it from the beginning. 4 pages of a third column, the one I'd added to track what was pattern and what was coincidence. The careful documentation of dates and times and exact language. Ray's name appearing regularly in the right column, a steadiness I had relied on without fully appreciating until it was over. I had turned to the last page of notes and read the final entry which I had written the night of the bunkhouse dinner in October, from the beginning. Then I had closed the legal pad and put it in the filing cabinet in the spare room, and I had not taken it out again. The sound of a car on the county road brought me back to the porch. Claire's sedan turned in at the drive and came up slowly the way she drove on gravel, careful of the ruts. She parked and got out and stood for a moment, looking at the property with her hand up against the May sun. She was wearing a light jacket and her hair was loose, and she had the look of someone who had slept well and was not for the moment managing anything. She came up the porch steps and I handed her a cup of coffee. The larch," she said, looking at the tree line. "They went out this week." I forgot they did that. She sat in the other chair and wrapped her hands around the mug and looked at the field. "I forgot they were even larch. I thought they were dead all winter." "They're not dead," I said. "They just let go of what they don't need." She looked at me sideways. "Was that a metaphor?" "It was an observation. You can do what you want with it." She laughed, the real one, the loose, easy laugh that had come back sometime in February and had been staying. We sat for a while and drank our coffee and watched Ray's truck work the far field and did not talk about anything in particular. Then she asked, "Do you regret any of it, the way you handled it, the investigation, the traps, all of it?" I thought about that. The legal pad, the camera in the guest house, Ambrose, Boyd, the months of saying nothing while I knew things I had not said. "I regret that it was necessary," I said. "That's different from regretting what I did." She nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you just said yes. In the beginning, if you just let them move into the bunkhouse and not said anything. Then you'd still be in it," I said. "You'd still be carrying the weight of something you didn't know you were carrying. Dennis would still be the man you thought he was. The money would have kept moving." "I would have been fine," she said. "I thought I was fine." "A fine and fine are different things," I said. "One of them is a temperature reading. The other one is something you say because you've stopped checking the gauge." She was quiet for a moment. Down in the field, Ray's truck had stopped, and I could see him standing beside it, looking at something on the fence line. His posture, the posture of a man who was thinking carefully before he acts. 12 years. The man had never changed. "So what's the lesson?" Claire asked. "If there is one." I set my coffee cup down on the porch railing. A lesson was a thing my father had believed in, specific and portable, the kind you could take away from a situation and apply somewhere else. He had given me one in a garage in Catskill when I was 12, and I had carried it for 53 years and found it useful in ways I could not have predicted. "No is a diagnostic instrument," I said. "That's the whole thing." I said no to one request, a building I wasn't using for family for a few months, and that no lit up the entire system. Everything I learned in the 14 months after that, I learned because I said no to something small, and then watched what came next. Claire turned her coffee cup in her hands. "Because a healthy system absorbs a no." "Without incident," I said. "A healthy relationship, a healthy family, a healthy business arrangement, anything absorbs a no and keeps moving. It might be disappointed, it might push back once reasonably, but it doesn't reconfigure, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't start looking for other angles." I looked at my daughter. When a no comes back at you as evidence of your age or your judgment or your reliability, you have just been handed the most important piece of information in the situation, and it cost you one uncomfortable minute. She looked at the larch trees for a long time. The May light was hitting them at the angle that makes new leaves look almost translucent pale green and lit from within. "I should have said no more," she said quietly. "Before all of this. To a lot of things." "So should I?" I said. "To a lot of things 3 years earlier. We don't always read the gauge when we should. That's not a character flaw. That's just the cost of trusting people." She reached over and put her hand on my arm briefly. The kind of gesture that doesn't need words and doesn't get them. And then she took it back and picked up her coffee, and we sat in the spring morning and let the silence be what it was, which was not uncomfortable but full, the way silence gets between two people who don't need to fill it. Ray's truck started moving again at the far end of the field. The hawk came back riding the air above the fence line, patient and unhurried, doing what it had been doing since before I came to this property and would be doing long after. I thought about Dorothy Ellison in Greene County. I thought about her 14-acre property and her guest cottage and the man who had come to sit across her table with an assembled smile. And I thought about the fact that no one had sat beside her on a porch in the autumn and asked her how she was doing, really doing, and what she'd noticed lately that seemed off. I thought about what a different thing the whole story might have been if someone had been there to say, "Tell me what you see. Let's read this together." She deserved that. She hadn't gotten it. I had. The hawk dropped, suddenly disappeared into the grass near the fence line, and came back up with something in its talons. It rose without effort, riding the thermal up above the tree line, and was gone. I picked up my coffee cup and found it had gone cold. I didn't mind. "Stay for lunch," I said. Claire looked at me and smiled. The real one, the one that came from the 9 years she'd had with her mother, and the 38 years she'd had with me, and the particular survival of someone who has found out what they're made of and discovered it was enough. "Yeah," she said. "I'll stay. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean that. Comment 1 if you think the moment that actually mattered was the first. No. Not the investigation, not the 4 boxes, just the first time I said, 'I'll think about it,' and meant something different by it than they expected. Comment 2 if you think I waited too long to tell Claire. That 3 years of small adjustments happened on my watch, and the cost of my silence was hers to pay, and I should have said something the first time I heard that particular tiredness in her voice. Comment 3 if this story reminded you of something in your own life, a request you said yes to, because the conversation of saying no felt like too much, a gauge you stopped checking because the reading made you uncomfortable. You don't have to say what it was, just tell me 3. I read everyone. And if you've ever been the one sitting beside somebody on a bad night, the one who drove 2 hours without being asked, who kept the records, who watched the fence line, this one was for you. I'll be here next week. There's always another one. This is a work of fiction created for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons living, or deceased, or real events is entirely coincidental and unintentional. If there is one thing I want you to take from this family story, it is this. No is not a wall, no is a window. The moment I said no to one small request, the whole system lit up and showed me exactly what was hiding behind it. I did not go looking for trouble. Trouble revealed itself because I gave it nowhere to hide. I am not a perfect man. I waited 3 years longer than I should have. I told myself it was not my place, that my daughter's life was her own, that silence was a form of respect. It was not. It was a form of comfort mine, not hers. If you are sitting with something you have been calling patience, ask yourself honestly whether it is patience or whether it is the fear of what saying no will show you. Do not make the mistake I made. Do not wait until the cost of the truth lands on someone you love. I believe that God does not promise us easy families. He promises us the strength to face what is real inside them. And in my experience, that strength arrives exactly when you stop pretending the gauge is reading normal when it isn't. This was a family betrayal I almost missed, not because it was hidden well, but because I was not looking. The signs of family betrayal are almost always there in the small adjustments, the careful words, the requests that arrive already decided. The cost of ignoring them belongs to whoever you love most. This family story ends on a porch in May, with my daughter staying for lunch and the fields finally green again. That is the only ending I have to offer. I hope it is enough. If something in this family story reached you, if you recognized any part of it, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you are here for what comes next. Thank you for staying with me until the end. What follows are stories built from real human experiences, shaped, reimagined, and fictionalized for the purpose of honest storytelling. Some details have been changed or constructed entirely. If this kind of content is not for you, there is no shame in stepping away and finding something that serves you better. But if you are still here, I will see you next week.